Hey, what's up, DFS fans? Ryan Kostrowski here with the DFS 5-pack. I got two New Year's resolutions this year. One, I want to do more of these strategy videos on pretty much a daily basis. One of them. And the next one is your standard. It's time to get back into shape. I have been slacking for 2 months, and when we get done with this, it's time to run out to the gym for the first time in a while. And if you are looking for motivation to do the same thing, like many people at the start of a new year, if you can get back into it today. I know it's tough to create time to work out, but I'm going to make it a point of mine today because I need to. It's been a real slack lately, and I can feel it. If I get winded running up the stairs, I know it's time to hit the gym. So now, more importantly, back into DFS, and these are the kind of the first 5 steps I would take on a given day to start building an NBA DFS lineup. Now, a lot of this stuff I have memorized, but if you don't play quite as much DFS, and hopefully most of you guys don't, these are kind of the 5 steps I would start the day with and how I would start building a lineup, and you can kind of go from there. So first things first, I tend to start by going to the projection sites. That's the first place I want to go. I want to know if there is somebody that is glaring, that sticks out to me, somebody that I consider a must play, or somebody I feel is being overvalued by the statistics, and they're not taking into account some of the human element. For example, yesterday, Pablo Ceballos of the Utah Jazz was one of the higher projected points per dollar guys on the board. But I think a lot of us who looked at the human element side of it and looked a little bit further, we knew that then when they were matched up with the Pelicans, they weren't going to be able to go small ball quite as much. So for me, I didn't play any Thabo. I recommended to my customers to at least fade him at the very minimum in all GPPs, if not cash entirely. And that worked out great as he was as the DNP. On the flip side, Greg Monroe was another guy who was up there all day long that we rode real heavy, like a lot of people, because he made a lot of sense yesterday. So I like to go to the projection sites because specifically if you go to a Roto Grinders, you get a pretty good idea of who the chalk is going to be. They are the biggest name in the industry, right? They have the most control out of all the DFS providers out there on where people are going to go. So I want to know where people are going to go. This is the biggest site. They have the biggest influence. It's not the only thing you want to look at for ownership percentages, but it'll generally give you a pretty good idea. I use Basketball Monster a lot for projections. I really only pay for one website all year, and it's going to be Basketball Monster. So I like their projections better, but Roto Grinders still does a lot more to control the chalk. So that is the first place I want to go for the day. It helps give me a better idea of who's going to be popular. And then if I see somebody with, let's say, a 7.5 points per dollar ratio, it gives me a better look into that team, and maybe there's somebody out that I just haven't even realized for the day that this person's going to be out, and that's why that person's projection is so high. So after taking a look at that, I like to go to my Vegas odds. Now, today we only got a 2-game slate up here. Usually there's going to be more of these, but the number one thing I want to find out is I am looking for close games with higher scores. If you really just want to keep it simple, you want games like right now, if you just look at this Golden State Houston game, you can see with a -5 and a 230 over under as of right now, even on a 12-game slate, this would be a game that had a lot of desire for you to look at. I'm not saying you can't pull pieces from other games. I'm just saying that in a game that's, if it's going to be close and going to be higher scoring, you are more likely to have more people within that game succeed. So I know that's pretty, what's the best way to describe that? That's pretty common sense to a lot of us who have been playing this game for a while. And for a lot of you guys who play a ton of DFS and play a lot of just fantasy sports in general, maybe you don't need to look at the Vegas odds on a daily basis. I know I don't always look at them, but that's only because I do this stuff for 10 hours a day. So I already know about what they're going to be. And then maybe just use this as a validation for somebody in our house. But you want those games that are going to be high scoring and close. And obviously, Vegas can't predict these things 100%. But they've built a pretty successful business model at being right on things like this more often than they're wrong. So it is a good thing for people to lean on to take a look at that. The worst thing you can do is lose minutes. Now, if you looked at, like, say, the Lakers versus the Thunder last night, massive blowout. What happened? Russell Westbrook was in a great spot. But if you're in a great spot and your team wins by 30 and you don't play in the fourth quarter, even if you play well and you're out your 28 minutes, it's hard to hit value, especially on a bigger salary if you're only in there for 28 minutes. All right. After that, one of the next things I want to do is check my pace of play numbers. Now, again, this is something that I have pretty well memorized, but if you are a little bit newer to NBA DFS, you want to be looking at things like this. And you can look at like your year totals. And then you can look at your last 3 games. And if you want to get real granular, you can figure out if some of these teams that are on the rise are on the rise for a specific reason. Was it matched up base, or are they just playing faster? One of these teams you see right here, Chicago, for the 2017 season now, they are now the 11th ranked team as far as pace of play is going to go. However, if you remember, early in the season, they were a lot closer to the bottom. The additions of Mirotic and more specifically Chris Dunn have really upped their pace of play. So to me, this Chicago has now become a great team to look at DFS-wise. They're a lot better offensively, so you're not getting a lot of these major blowouts anymore. They're really pushing pace for people. Last night, I think both DeMar DeRozan, Serge Ibaka, and even backup Fred DeLon Wright had major games against Chicago. So they have become a prime target DFS-wise. So those are the things you can notice by checking this stuff on a daily basis. And you just know that these top teams are the ones you want to look at. Whether you're 103.7 or 103.5, that can turn around every day. So you don't lean on this stuff as gospel, but you do want to keep up to date with it and know. Like teams like Phoenix, Philly, and Lakers, these are your 3 teams. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be up there all season long. All right, after I understand my pace of play, the next thing I want to look at is my defensive positional rankings. Now, you have to not just lean on these things 100%, but you want to get a basic idea. Like we know against point guards, the Suns are going to fluctuate between number 1 and number 7, depending on where they are right now. They're down to number 4 right now, but they were just number 1 just a couple of days ago. One person has a bad game against them, they go down, then they're going to go back up. But you want to know which teams are at the top. The Magic, the Nuggets, the Suns, and the Bucks are a little bit new to this as they're playing their defense a little bit differently lately. Give up a lot of points to point guards. This doesn't mean it's going to succeed on any given night, but it should be another spoke on your wheel, another tool in your toolbox is something that you take a look at. If you flip over to the center position, we know that all season long, the Lakers, the Kings, and the Mavericks have been right up near the top. The Brooklyn Nets as well. The 76ers and Suns, both of them are on the rise entering the top teams. But you want to know, where do centers normally succeed? We know that centers succeed against the Lakers for a variety of reasons. But one of the reasons is you block a lot of shots against the Lakers, so that gives them a little bit of an added extra bump. Against the Kings, they just don't have any big athletic bodies to hang with anybody. We like Randolph and we like Willie Cauley-Stein, but they can't check people on the interior. So it's usually a good idea to take a look at specific centers against the Kings. All right, finally, after I've kind of looked at these statistics, I want to build a core of guys to start my lineup with. And that core will vary. The name the DFS 5-back comes from the strategy I use, was generally I build a starting 5, and that's how I build my lineups. That's the kind of information I give to my customers specifically. And then you got to make your plays outside of that. So I'm not saying this is my specific core on the day, but I want to know who are my core group of 3 to 6 players, depending on the slate, that I want to lean on. That way, when we get a lot of new information towards the end of the day and I start trying to fill in things, I've got my core guys I feel good about. These are the last group of people I want to pull from. Now, with NBA, things get crazy as the day goes along. We all know this. Last night, we got the information on Andre Drummond late. That made Boban Marjanovic, or however you pronounce his last name, from the Detroit Pistons, a great play and also a chalky play. The DFS community has grown over the last couple of years. You can't use these guys as effectively as they used to because everybody knows how to evaluate these a lot better than they did, say, 3 or 4 years ago. So I want to know what my core is, and that way I don't really start making a final lineup for my one main lineup I run nightly till probably 45 minutes to a half hour before a lock. I want to wait as long as I can before I start trying to pound out my final picks on the day, because NBA evolves all day long. We do a lot of our shows in the morning time, and unfortunately, by afternoon or early evening, sometimes that information is barely even applicable anymore because of all the news that we've had. That's NBA for you. So that's how I start building a lineup. That should give you a pretty good baseline if you're trying to figure out how you should start. We're all going to do things a little bit differently. So if you got your process down and what you have works for you, stick with that. That's just specifically how I look at things and how it works for me. So that's that, guys. Off to finally go work out. I am massively out of shape, so it's time to start hitting the gym. If you've been looking for the motivation to go do the same thing, try to get the time to go do that today, because fitness is important, and I have been slacking like a madman lately. So thanks, guys. Have a great day.